Hollywood doesn't understand Godzilla, and I can prove it. Ah, you thought I was going for the TriStar 98 Godzilla, didn't you? I'm not going for the low-hanging fruit here. I'm going for the real deal. Legendary Pictures. And their mixed success with The King of the Monsters. You are probably thinking to yourself, who are you to tell me what makes for a good Godzilla film? Well, dear viewer, I'm someone who has watched all 37 Godzilla films, including the Netflix animated trilogy, and used to watch such classics as Son of Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Gigan on VHS, to my parents' dismay. How many of you know what a VHS is? Damn, I feel old. It won't all be criticising Hollywood though. If you stick around to the end, I'll give a few points I think Legendary Pictures got right, and what I would do if someone was dumb enough to give me a bag full of cash to produce a feature-length Godzilla film. Godzilla is more than the king of the monsters. As you may already know, Godzilla is the physical embodiment of the atomic bombs dropped on Japan by the United States during World War II, which I'm sure Hollywood would rather you forget, changing the narrative away from an unstoppable force of destruction and death created by human recklessness to a more ticket-friendly awakening of a slumbering anti-hero. Godzilla's strongest narratives in the Japanese pictures have always had a message that flows through the entire runtime, whether that be the prior mentioned atomic bomb analogy in the original 1954 film, the dangers of genetic engineering in the case of 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante, or more recently, 2016 Shin Godzilla, which demonstrates the inefficiencies and delays of the Japanese government when responding to the Fukushima nuclear disaster in March 2011. Take 2019's King of the Monsters, for example. The central message is, don't dig up space aliens and use mind control on them. Don't get me wrong, some of my favourite Godzilla films don't have a supporting narrative and are utterly an excuse to have giant monsters fight on screen. But films like 2004's Final Wars are a celebration of 50 years of a franchise that has done everything from horrific imagery of war to friendly childhood Manila. But each film has a consistent tone and embraces what it is. At least Gareth Edwards' film had a consistent tone. Unfortunately, that tone was boring, with very little monster action until the very end, and even then, you can barely make out what is happening. Compare that with some of the wide, zoomed-out spectacles from the 90s and 2000s. They did heed this criticism in King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, but their over-reliance on CGI makes for what might as well be an animated film. I want to make it clear, CGI is not the enemy, but it should be used as a tool to enhance the visuals, not be the visuals. Throughout the majority of Godzilla's history, tokusatsu, which is the term for films that primarily use practical effects, or suitmation, was used. When most people think of examples of tokusatsu, something like Power Rangers probably springs to mind. But even Power Rangers, with their limited budget, was able to make essentially toys and men in suits somewhat believable. G-fans can likely think of plenty of examples of the art form done well, but surprisingly, suitmation reached its peak outside of Godzilla, with its cheap rip-off counterpart, Gamera. Yes, the same Gamera, or Gamera. When he was put in the hands of visionary director Sasuke Kaneko in the 90s Heisei trilogy, suitmation really shows its true potential, rivaling, and in my opinion, exceeding anything done with the Godzilla franchise, and with only $6 million. Do you really think that this looks better than this with a budget of $6 million? If you think so, Jet Jaguar will dropkick you in the side of the head. Disney's Marvel humour permeates Legendary's films. It oozes studio interference and focus groups. I know I'm not the only one that is sick of the formulaic nature of modern films, to appeal to a broad as audience as possible. This mentality has spread to other media too, such as gaming. Take Splinter Cell for example in the stealth genre, which went from slow-paced and methodical to something out of Fast and Furious 10, with the goal of mass market appeal. Hollywood and their investors aren't satisfied with making a reasonable profit anymore. It has to be huge profit of hundreds of millions of dollars. That's another topic for another time. Monster movies are not going to be for everyone. A large portion of the population think they are big, loud, and dumb, which in fairness, they usually are. But that's okay. Know your audience and give them the best possible experience, not some watered down version to attempt to please everyone. Speaking of watered down, the acting. There is so much wasted potential in this franchise. In Godzilla 2014, Bryan Cranston gives a gut-wrenching performance, only to die 5 minutes later, leaving us with Aaron Taylor-Johnson's worst ever performance, as the film spirals into a gloomy, bland nothingness. The man can act. Have you seen him in Nocturnal Animals? It's hard to believe he's the same person. He's not the only one. Sally Hawkins and Elizabeth Olsen are brilliant actors, criminally underused. Will Hollywood ever learn that you must give talented actors something to actually work with? Anyway, I've been shitting on Legendary Pictures for long enough at this point. How about things they get right? The personalities behind the kaiju. As much as I love Suitmation, I will concede that CGI allows for a level of facial expression that is not possible with a suit. A perfect example of this is with King Ghidorah in The King of the Monsters. Each head had its clear, distinct personality, which really brought the character to life. I think they did an excellent job with nearly all the monster designs, especially Rodan, which might just be my favourite look of his. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. What the hell did they do to Mechagodzilla? He looks like the epitome of "we have Mechagodzilla at home." Someone must have watched the animated trilogy when designing this atrocity. It's like they drew an outline of Godzilla and let a toddler attack it with a crayon. Okay, I said I was going to be nice. I did really appreciate the camera perspectives Gareth Edwards chose to use to make the kaiju look like the city-destroying monsters they are. You can almost feel the ground shake as Godzilla steps out of the water and through the building as if they were merely tall grass to him. And the score. I will have to admit the music in some of the films greatly complements the existing Godzilla scores, some of which were also used. In all, I think that Hollywood have made monster movies with Godzilla in them, and not Godzilla films. They lack the narrative focus, the creativity, and mostly the heart and the passion needed for a true Godzilla film. Now, I did mention at the start of this video that I would explain what I would do if I were given a budget to make a Hollywood Godzilla film. Firstly, slash the budget. Maybe the kaiju genre will have an audience draw that superheroes used to have, but at this moment, it doesn't. I'd say make the budget $50 to $60 million. I'd use Suitmation over CGI to cut costs drastically. Guillermo del Toro would direct due to his experience with creature effects from such films as Pan's Labyrinth, Shape of Water, Hellboy, and Pacific Rim, and even Pinocchio with its stop motion, with Sasuke Kaneko to produce the film due to his experience on the Gamera trilogy. The film would be set in World War II Okinawa, a Japanese prefecture which at the time was occupied by American forces. Instead of Godzilla coming to the shores of mainland Japan, I would have him attack the American soldiers on and around Okinawa, almost as retribution for the attack. You can almost imagine Godzilla manifesting itself as a vengeful spirit of the innocents who lost their lives, similar to GMK, which was also directed by Sasuke Kaneko. An American Navy officer washes ashore of a neighbouring island, which happens to be Infant Island, the home of Mothra, with the US naively believing she is their saviour, and an all-out battle between Godzilla, Mothra, and the remaining US Navy takes place. The film would show the horrors of war and destruction of Japan, and the innocent lives taken. This is another reason why I would choose Guillermo del Toro to direct. He is not American, but Mexican, and a neutral party to the discussion. But that's just me. Let me know what you'd do if you were to write a Godzilla film in the comments below. One last thing before I go. I realise that a lot of you watching might not have experienced any of the Japanese Godzilla films, so I'll give 3 viewing recommendations ahead of the release of the new Japanese Godzilla film showing in cinemas, Godzilla -1. Go and watch it. Firstly, Godzilla 1954. This is the original film that started it all, and the perfect place to begin. It is a film that has aged extremely well, other than some of the special effects. It shows the devastation of Japan harrowingly, and humanity's moral responsibility with weapons of mass destruction. Secondly, for a lighter tone, 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. This is simply good fun. It's Godzilla crossed with the Terminator, involving time travel, and has a new origin for Godzilla and King Ghidorah. Lastly, I recommend 2001's GMK, or its full title, Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. Ignore the ridiculous title. This is widely considered as many fans' favourite film, and for a reason. Godzilla's full power is on display here, with practical effects that hold up even today. And that's it for now. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't, and I'll catch you next time.